On Sunday, the Tennessee Titans went on the road at Seattle and beat the Seahawks in overtime. And I got to ask, first of all, I wonder how Seahawks fans will feel about this game, because they had a late lead, 30-16, and blew it. I mean, they just lost this game. And part of the story here is that, crazy enough, one of the reasons why Tennessee was able to tie this game was Seattle missed an extra point, which would have put way more pressure on Tennessee later, where they would have had to go for two or try to do something else to make this game a tie ball game. Down 15 is really different from down 14, and I just thought this was a really, really brutal loss for Seattle. Now, Seattle's defense had a rough day. Tennessee had 532 yards of total offense. Derrick Henry, their running back, had 35 carries for 182 yards and 3 touchdowns. And by the way, Derrick Henry is just incredible to watch. He had a run where Tennessee had the ball first and goal on the 9-yard line, and he completely reversed field at the line of scrimmage and ran for a touchdown. It was one of the better runs of the year for me, not to mention that he had 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. One of them was a 60-yard touchdown run. Like, Derrick Henry is just a beast, really fun to watch. Also, a notable thing for Tennessee is that Titans left tackle Taylor Lewan did not play. And he's a Pro Bowler, like a really outstanding left tackle. And he's recovering from a knee injury, and he played awful last week. He gave up a bunch of sacks to Chandler Jones against the Arizona Cardinals last week in week 1. And I think this week, actually, Tennessee was better without him, because playing hurt is something that isn't actually always the right thing to do. It's seen as this brave thing to fight through the pain and, play injured. But the reality is that if you're so hurt you can't perform well enough to, be playing at a high level, you're actually hurting your football team. Taylor Lewan last week in week 1, I think, was so injured that he couldn't actually help his team anymore. He was better off on the sideline, which this week we kind of saw that. And it's also crazy. Tennessee's offense put up 33 points, over 500 yards of total offense, and all while doing so, their stud receiver, A.J. Brown, didn't even play very well. A.J. Brown had 3 catches for 43 yards and dropped a couple of passes that you expect a star receiver to haul in. Now, Julio Jones, the other Titans receiver, had a really good game. He had 6 catches for 128 yards, had a touchdown that got called back. They overturned that touchdown. I thought that was kind of a weird call. I didn't agree. I will say it's their job, not mine. But it looked inbounds, and then they called it a catch on the field, and then they decided that enough evidence to overturn that. I didn't see enough evidence to overturn that. Where, if it had been called a non-touchdown, and they said the ruling on the field stands, not a touchdown, I would have said that's a good call. But I didn't see enough information on screen to say this is a touchdown. Actually, no, it's not, because of something we saw. I thought it was a touchdown. I'll argue that forever. But either way, like. The only thing I felt bad for was that Julio Jones didn't get a touchdown catch. I also want to give a shout out to Titans' second-year corner, Christian Fulton. I was worried that he would be a big weakness this year for Tennessee's defense. And the reality is he made a bunch of really good plays against Seattle. He kept DK Metcalf, the Seattle Seahawks star receiver, from having a big game. DK Metcalf was very quiet for the day, only having 53 yards receiving. And Christian Fulton had multiple plays downfield where he was knocking the ball away or making an impact. And I was really worried about this guy, and I want to give him a shout out. Like, he played very, very well against Seattle. Now, for Seattle, the biggest story of the year for them is so far, in only 2 games, but so far their new offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, has been fantastic. I really like his play design. He's done very, very well. Tyler Lockett has been the standout receiver. He's got 278 yards, 3 touchdowns in 2 games. And the way that Shane Waldron's offense is creating big opportunities downfield is like, it's manna from heaven. It's really fun to watch. Now, Seattle's defense was not good at all against Tennessee, though. And I'm curious, because you have Russell Wilson, this incredible quarterback, and I wonder, like, how far can Russell Wilson carry this football team? Like, where will they be by week 10? They've got a bunch of problems on their defense. They've got an offensive line that's fine, but often unimpressive. And I just really wonder, when they play, J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones, or the Rams and Aaron Donald, or the 49ers, like, how are they going to play against better football teams? And so far, I'm like, it's uneven. Like, Russell Wilson can carry them, but the question is how far? And I don't know. I was surprised. I thought going into this game, Seattle was going to win this game. I really expected Seattle to dominate. And so the fact that they not only didn't dominate, but lost a close game in overtime really surprised me. And then also the fact that Seattle had the ball in overtime, had a chance to go win the game, and they couldn't. So I don't know. Seattle's a team that is endlessly baffling. Like they'll beat a really good team one week and lose to a team that is struggling the next week. I can never get a read on Seattle, and they're a weird football team. But time will tell. I don't want to make any big proclamations after week 2 for Seattle. They're 1-1 right now, and I'm excited for November. Like by November, by around week 10, we'll know how good or bad Seattle is, and I think they're better than I thought. I had them at 6-11 to go, this year. But are they much better? I don't know. So again, the question is, how far can Russell Wilson carry Seattle? And does this loss really mean anything? We won't know for a couple weeks, but in week 10, we'll know a lot more about Seattle. And I'm very excited to see how things develop for them.